Parshas ki Savo, Tovshin Vav. So we're now about a week and a half before Rosh Hashanah. No jokes. It's getting very close, and it really has to be on everybody's mind. And once again this week, we're going to discuss a beautiful lesson from the Nesivos Shalom on Parshas ki Savo. And from that, we are going to take out a very, very big idea and big lesson for us also to take into Rosh Hashanah. And the pasuk begins at the beginning of this week's Parsha, V'hayo ki savoi el haaretz. Now really, these are very, very exciting times for Klal Yisrael. You know, since we've been talking months and months ago, we talk about Yetzias Mitzrayim, first the Makkos, Yetzias Mitzrayim, and everything, and the Kabbalah Torah, and it's all leading up. Finally now, we're coming to Eretz Yisrael. And the Parsha tells us, V'hayo ki savoi el haaretz, asher Hashem alekecha noiseim l'cha nachala. You're coming to the land which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving to you as an inheritance, v'yashavta, of Yemishto v'yashavta ba. You're going to come and you're going to inherit Eretz Yisrael, the Torah tells us. Very, very exciting time. V'lokachta mereshis kol prio adama. And then we are given, right here, we have the mitzvah of Bikurim, that you should take from the first fruit that grows from the ground. So we've spoken about this Inyan. Now we say all the time that Baruch Hashem, we're in our 7th year of Shiurim, so we have covered many different aspects and many different ideas on the Parsha. But 3 years ago, we actually mentioned and we discussed the Sifri, a very, very interesting Sifri. And the Sifri at the beginning of our Parsha tells us, Asei mitzvah ho'amura, do this mitzvah of Bikurim, be'inyan shebischara tikanes la'aretz. Very, very unbelievable Sifri. And we gave an answer then, what exactly this means. And we asked the question, the Sifri is telling us basically here, do this mitzvah of Bikurim, and in the schus of doing mitzvah of Bikurim, such a great mitzvah, such a tremendous mitzvah, in the schus of this mitzvah, you're going to be zeicha to go into Eretz Yisrael. We asked the question then, many of the Mefarshim ask, that we know that the mitzvah of Bikurim was of course only done once the Bnei Yisrael were totally settled in Eretz Yisrael. It wasn't even right when they went into Eretz Yisrael. It was about 14 years later when they first were able and when they first did the mitzvah of Bikurim. So what does it mean that you should do the mitzvah of Bikurim, and in the schus of Bikurim you'll be zeicha to go into Eretz Yisrael? It didn't work that way. They first went into Eretz Yisrael, 14 years passed, and then they did the mitzvah of Bikurim. So what exactly does this Sifri mean? What does it mean? B'schar mitzvah zu tikanes la'aretz. You'll be zeicha to go into Eretz Yisrael. And also, the Nesivos Shalom asks, what is the special segula which is specific to the mitzvah of Bikurim? The answer, how it's going to be, you're going to be zeicha to go into Eretz Yisrael because of Bikurim, we gave an answer 3 years ago. You can look back at the shir from then. We're going to give another answer tonight. But the question is also, what is so special about the mitzvah of Bikurim? Why not the other mitzvahs that tuliyos v'aretz, the other mitzvahs that have to do with Eretz Yisrael? A person gave a lot more, Ma'aser Rishon, Ma'aser Sheni, Ma'aser Ani. These things were done a lot more and given a lot more than the mitzvah of Bikurim. The mitzvah of Bikurim, we know, as we say every morning in davening, Elu dvarim she'ein lahem shiur, and Bikurim is one of them. That a person was able to be yoytza the mitzvah of Bikurim just with a very, very small amount. So what is special about the mitzvah of Bikurim? So, Nesivos Shalom brings from the Svarim HaKadoshim that tell us that really a person has to know that the tachlis of avodas Hashem, what is a person supposed to accomplish? And this is a very good thing to know before Rosh Hashanah also. The tachlis of avodas Hashem is that a person should come to the midah of what the Nesivos Shalom always called bittul hayeshes. where a person begins to understand and understands that me, myself, I am nothing. We totally subordinate ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Where if a person thinks that they are something, that, says the Nesivos Shalom, the midas hayeshus, the person believing that somehow they themselves are something, that is the cause and something that leads to many, many other bad midas. And when we work on our avodas Hashem, this is what we have to work on. And this is also why gaiva, we know, gaiva is such a terrible, terrible midah. A person is about gaiva. It is so frowned upon by HaKadosh Baruch Hu kaviyachol. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, the Gemara S.S.S. Daf Heyom and Aleph, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Ein ani v'hu yichayil l'agor. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that if a person's about gaiva, he's full of himself, he thinks of himself something unbelievable thing, to just think that HaKadosh Baruch Hu kaviyachol says this, that you and I cannot exist in the same world. We can't. If a person is so full of themselves, gaiva, no. That HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want. And even if the person is mekayim the entire Torah, and even though a person does all wonderful, wonderful things, still Hashem says, if you have gaiva, if you are full of yourself, if you feel that you are something, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't want to dwell in the same world. Now we know, the Torah tells us that HaKadosh Baruch Hu dwells among people who are other, who are Balei Aveira. The Pasuk tells us in the Torah, B'soich to my son, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is here and he never gives up on a person. A person can do many, many bad and negative things, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu never gives up. HaKadosh Baruch Hu never moves out. HaKadosh Baruch Hu never says, I can't be with you. He's always here, waiting, come back. But if a person has gaiva, relax this midah of bitul hayeshus, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Gaiva is like avodah zarah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu cannot exist with somebody who does not work on bitul hayeshus, someone that thinks about themselves a lot. And of course, we always know, as great as the negative of gaiva is, as negative as gaiva and yeshus are, we find that, of course, in all the mitzvahs that we say, including Bikurim, all the mitzvahs that we say that are keneged, there are certain mitzvahs we talk about, we say they are keneged kol haTorah kula. They're so great, the mitzvah is so big, it's keneged kol haTorah kula. And says in Nesivos Shalom, he's going to enumerate now and say every one of these mitzvahs, you know what's great about these mitzvahs? That what they do really essentially to the person is bitul hayeshus. All these mitzvahs bring. And he lists over a couple of different mitzvahs. Yerushalmi in Masechta Brachos tells us that Shabbos, the mitzvah of Shabbos, which we're Hashem will all be zoicha to tomorrow night, the mitzvah of Shabbos is keneged, is like all the other mitzvahs of the Torah combined. It is so great that if you put Shabbos on one side and all the other mitzvahs on the other side, Shabbos will be greater and be equal to all the other mitzvahs combined. The reason being, says in Nesivos Shalom, because Shabbos has that midah of bitul hayeshus. Why is Shabbos? Shabbos is not just about delicious cholent and kegel and all the other tanugim that we have on Shabbos. Shabbos is about dveikus Hashem, connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when if you make it that your Shabbos is all about connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, means that you're subordinating yourself. You say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I need you. I want to be connected to you. And that is why Shabbos is connected all the other mitzvahs of the Torah. And the same thing is about the Torah itself. The Rambam tells us in Hilchos Talmud Torah, Perek Gimel, Halacha Gimel, that Torah is connected, learning Torah is connected all the other mitzvahs. You know why? For the same reason. Because learning Torah creates a kesher, a bond between a Yid and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when you want to be connected to Hashem, you can't feel that you're great, that you're somehow something. You're willing to give yourself totally to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Torah is a kesher between Hashem and Klal Yisrael. Much like a marriage is that way. And a person is mevatel themselves to the Torah of Hashem. The Gemara Masechta Brachos, Daf Samach Gimel Amud Beis tells us Ein divrei Torah miskaimen, ela b'mi shememis atzmai alel. And we spoke about this in Parshas Chukas. We spoke about it a number of times throughout the Torah, throughout Hashiurim. But the very interesting Gemara, Ein divrei Torah miskaimen, ela b'mi shememis atzmai alel. Torah can only have an existence, Torah can only stay with someone who is memis atzmai. In other words, he kills himself, so to speak, over the Torah. What's going on? After Nesivos Shalom, the Torah tells us, v'chai bohem. So what do you mean Torah could only be with somebody that, so to speak, is willing to die for the Torah, that is memis atzmai? The answer is, says in Nesivos Shalom, that memis atzmai doesn't mean death in a physical sense as we know it. Memis atzmai means you take yourself out of the equation. That I'm learning Torah, I'm Nesivos Nefesh for Torah, I'm doing all of this, I remove myself. That's memis atzmai. You are as if you don't exist here. Bittul hayeshes. You do it all for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And says in Nesivos Shalom, the same is for Eretz Yisrael. Very, very interesting. The Sifri and Devarim, Yud Beis tells us that Eretz Yisrael, the mitzvah of being in Eretz Yisrael, living here in Eretz Yisrael, is also shekula kechol ha-mitzvah shel b'Torah. It is also equal, the mitzvah of Yishuv, of being in Eretz Yisrael, is also on par with all the other mitzvahs of the Torah combined. Why? It says in Nesivos Shalom, Eretz Yisrael has another name. It was called also Eretz Canaan. And Eretz Canaan means an Eretz for those that are nichnoim, for those that subordinate themselves, for those that don't feel that they are something. So you know who really, really has a mitzvah of being in Eretz Yisrael? Only a person who's really humble, a person who has bittul hayeshes, those are the people that really feel like they are living in Eretz Yisrael. Those are the people who will gain from Eretz Yisrael all the great things that Eretz Yisrael, the Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, has to offer us. And that is why Yeshua was the one from amongst all the Meraglim. All the other Meraglim, the spies who went into Eretz Yisrael, they felt they were something. They were leaders. They were the ones who were going to decide what happens now and how we go into Eretz Yisrael. Yeshua was humble. Yeshua was the only one from all the Meraglim that was Zoiche to actually Zoiche to Eretz Yisrael. And now, says in Nesivos Shalom, we could explain what we mean when we said that because of the mitzvah of Bikurim, you'll be Zoiche to go into Eretz Yisrael. Listen to this unbelievably beautiful, beautiful thought from the Nesivos Shalom. What happens by Bikurim? You know what happens by Bikurim? A person, and this is a lot of times in a person's life also, you put, the people were farmers. They were people who worked the land. And they put all their koiches and all their effort, all their time, they put it into working the land and trying to do everything to cultivate the land that it should produce the best produce. And you know what you do? When the land finally produces something, you know, you go to your field and you take that fruit and you say, all my work and everything that I've done, this is for you, Kaviyachal. This is for you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. A total bittul hayeshes, because the person could think, I watered the land, I worked the land, I harvested, I did everything. No, it's all about you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm taking this, the first produce of the land. I worked on it, but you know it, without HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's nothing. I'm taking this, and I am giving this to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Well, we recognize, and we have the recognition that it's all about Hashem. Much more than the mitzvahs of Trumas and Maisras. This mitzvah, Dafka, because of this mitzvah of Bikurim, you'll be Zoiche to go into Eretz Yisrael. Bikurim is the thing, just like we said about Eretz Yisrael, and Torah, and Shabbos. Bikurim is the thing. It's such a bittul hayeshes. It's exactly what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. But we asked the question, they didn't do Bikurim until 14 years later. So Taka says in the Nesivos Shalom, of course, physically, they could not carry out the mitzvah Bikurim until 14 years later. But you know what it is? They listened to the commandment of the Bikurim. They got the idea of mitzvahs Bikurim. They were able to learn the lesson of Bikurim in order to go into Eretz Yisrael. Say mitzvah zu. Yeah, you can't bring the Bikurim physically for 14 years. But learn this lesson before you go into Eretz Yisrael. This lesson of totally being mevatel yourself. And that, bishvil that, tikones la'aretz. You'll be zoiche to inherit Eretz Yisrael, and you'll be zoiche to give the Bikurim. And I was just thinking, the Nesivos Shalom